the art of combat. How are you all doing today?
Good. Thank you.
I didn't have to prompt you to be louder. Thank you. I super appreciate that energy.
There will be a test later.
We need it. I'm not administering it. Hello. If you don't know who I am, totally valid. My name's Omega Jones, also known as the Critical Bard. Critical Bard across all social media channels except Tumblr. My pronouns are he and they. I'm an active vocalist, tabletop professional, hobbyist, a card, a jack of all trades, master of like 3 of them. And I am your humble moderator today. I have with me a bunch of amazing individuals within the tabletop space as a whole. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting and niche topic when it comes to tabletop, and that is combat. We all know it, we all sometimes like it, most of the time we don't. Why? Because it's too long and people don't know what the heck they want to do. So whether you are a forever DM or you're a player who's been doing it for a while, or this is going to be your first time ever, here's some tips and tricks on how to make that combat a little better and why we put so much emphasis upon that. Before we get there, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. We're going to start to my left, give your name, your pronouns, and what you do in this industry. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Marshall, she, her pronouns. I'm a game designer best known for Ancestry and Culture, an alternative to race in 5e. I'm working with Pinnacle Entertainment, MCDM, and other companies.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Heisler, he, him. I am the associate product developer for role-playing games for Renegade Game Studios. We produce Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, Transformers, very soon My Little Pony. And we have our own game system, and come play it, it's fun.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Alec, or Alec the Bard. I am a TTRPG content creator and professional ballroom dancer based out of the Midwest, and my pronouns are he, him.
And I am Good Grief George, also he, him. I mainly do jamming for Avatar Legends lately. My primary thing right now.
That's fair. And our last panelist, Team Athens, is not here. I'll let them introduce themselves more when they get here. If they get here, hopefully they get here. We're still going to want them when they get here. I like to do personal little icebreakers for our panelists and for the audience just to get everybody warmed up. So just a quick raise of hands who has ever been into combat in a RPG situation. Great. Who likes combat?
There you go.
Saw that coming from a mile away. Totally valid. Yeah, we all have different levels of experiences and preferences when it comes to combat. So I would just love really quickly for our panelists, starting at that end, coming back this way. What has been one of your favorite Yeah, deal with it.
Every time.
Because you're at the end.
It's fine.
What has been one of the most fulfilling or favorite combat you've been in a tabletop, whether it was a personal victory or if it was just like a good storytelling moment?
This will be a little bit of recency bias, but one of the campaigns I ran for one of my Avatar campaigns, I got to run that, and I had a couple of really cool NPCs in it, but it was really cool for me because I like the system where the players can mostly tell the story, and my players did things that were so unexpected that I just took all of my paperwork, all of my ideas and agendas, and just threw them out the window and went, "You're amazing and brilliant! Just keep doing that, and the whole thing is going to be this from now on." And it all because of a particular fight that we had, where they just decided, you know what, this thing is going to work this way, and I said, sure, why not? I love it when players do that in my campaigns.
I think my favorite moment from a campaign, as far as combat goes, was I had set my players into an airship fight, and I expected them to get on the cannons and do stuff. They decided to ram the ship into the other ship first, and then as it was crashing, the artificer, I can't remember what spell it was, but they shaped pieces of the metal into hang gliders, and then they hang glided to the ground. And it the falling mechanics completely out the window, the ship battle completely out the window, but they had a blast, and it was really fun for me to watch, and I had no idea what was going to happen, and that's what makes it fun for me as a DM during combat. So,
One of my most enjoyable recent combats was a long. There's an evil dragon, you see, and in this game world, dragons are super crazy bad, and so it was a encounter that we probably did a month worth of sessions to be like, what is the dragon not like? like what kind of breath weapon, other effects were we looking at, and then finding all kinds of ways to deal with those so that we were going into it smart and prepared, and managed to survive. So
Nice.
Nice.
I'd say my favorite is probably the final battle in a campaign I took a group of players in, that we went levels 1 to 20 in 5e, and the final enemy ended up being the father of one of the PCs, because of course he wrote a strange father into his backstory, so I had to include it. And the cast power word kill, and the villain had 99 hit points left, and if you know, it works. And it was just so narratively satisfying, because it was right after the big bad evil guy had given a speech trying to persuade his estranged son to join him, Vader style, and he said, die.
I absolutely love that. And mine is definitely a personal victory. It also came at a heavy sacrifice. In my home game that we've been playing for years, there's over 20 of us in this campaign. For our act finales, we all were together. And we all had these potential spellcasting components that were made from like the spirit of Istis, who's like the goddess of fate. And we could use this spellcasting component in a very specific way. We're doing a big boss fight. I had a Tempest Flare and I cast Shatter, and then this thing freezes time, and it says, "Do you want to cast it again?" I go, "Sure, yeah, power," and I cast it again. It says, "Do you want to do it again?" I go, "Yes, I want to, because I want to destroy this person." Eventually, when I say no, you have to make a wisdom saving throw. If you get under 25, you have to cast a spell again. That sounds great. No, it's not. Once you're finally done and you beat that saving throw, you calculate all that damage, and the DM roll a die. I either take 50% of the damage, 100% of the damage, or 150% of the damage. At the very end, I went 2 over my max, and I instant died. But so did she. It was very personal, and he was great, and now he's forever known as the left-handed Talos. Anywho, as you can see, combat can be fun, it can be memorable, but also there's ways to make that be. But we have to kind of go back to the beginning. So I would love to know, in your personal opinion, why do TTRPGs, specifically D&D in this case, y'all better clap, specifically D&D, why do we put so much stress on combat? If you don't realize, if you look at all of these subclasses, I'm going to give a very random number that I think is correct. Don't fact check to me, and if you do, get out. About 85-ish% of the subclasses just are based in combat, period. So it's like, why do we believe that's the case? Why does Dungeons and Dragons need fighting?
why are there so many rules about fighting compared to anything else in the game?
That's what I want to know.
Well, when I first started playing back in 2005, the first group that I played with for years were all power gamers. We're playing 3.5 and then Pathfinder when it came out, and the thing that stuck with me the most when I asked them why it is they're building the characters the way they're building them is they said, well, you can always build your character to be good in combat because you can always just talk out the role play. You don't need the mechanics for that. And I was against that because I was like, no, we legitimately have a diplomacy skill. Like, why would you not put points in that? You know, that kind of thing. But the more that I've played lately, it almost kind of makes sense. Because for myself personally, I'm an extrovert. So I am capable of doing that. I am capable of role-playing out whatever it is I want to say and do, and maybe get an advantage here or there when I roll, my checks. But I think there was something there when they said that back in the day.
I think, I'm old, and I've been gaming since '82. Almost a lot of D&D. And back in that day, I remember reading about and hearing about the old-timers then, who would talk about chainmail and the predecessors to D&D, which were just war games. So role-playing games, as we understand it in tabletop role-playing, grows out of the wargaming tradition. And as the eminent stewards of the Dungeons & Dragons world have said, they feel some obligation to maintain some of that legacy. So combat, will, at least as long as that attitude is in charge, will always be one of the central features of Dungeons & Dragons, and a lot of other role-playing games kind of emulate, or try to emulate D&D, so combat abounds.
And for me, my personal opinion on why combat is important to TTRPGs, or why it's a main component, is it's something I pull from my theater background when I was doing fight choreography, is that we ask why these fights happen as well, because violence happens when communication breaks down. When words will no longer get across the message, violence or physical altercations can occur. And then that's why I think it's important to a storytelling game, is because sometimes words can no longer get the scene finished or convince the person, and violence is the next step. Shouldn't be, but sometimes it's.
No, I think that's all very valid. Yeah, it's very interesting. You're correct. And I say it's easier, but then also we have to look at current day versus how it was formed. That it is sometimes easier to talk things out, and you can figure out how the ending will be just how well you speak about it. But when it comes to a combative measure, how do we decide who's better? It's easier to put mechanics to it and just let mechanics do the job. And there's so many ways to fight. Physical, magical, range, melee, whatever the case may be, having so much detail is important to allow that to be as smooth as possible. But it is still interesting that there is still more of an emphasis on the social and explorative side of tabletop gaming. That's just fascinating. Kind of going into that though, I think there is a level of, how do you put it? People think that being social isn't competitive. People think the social aspect of TTRPGs isn't as, wow.
Marvelous, I have to show up late.
Before we get to this real quick, Tay Mathis, everyone, please introduce yourself and who you are and what's going on.
Hello everybody, my name is Tay Mathis. I am a filthy casual player in all TTRPGs. And I am exceptionally late because I am Captain Marvelous and we have to do everything showy. So, yeah.
That is fair. We're just talking about the art of combat, and we're kind of getting into the social aspect of combat, and I think that's still very important. Especially those tenser moments, especially in roleplay, that could result into something physical but hasn't yet, or even just debates or things of that nature. That's still a level of a combative measure, and that you can't necessarily just talk it out. How do you handle those tenser confrontations in your games?
Me personally, I tend to kind of pause my game and bring it almost to a stop to try and figure out, okay, what is it you're trying to accomplish, and why do you feel like you have to go about it this route? Because if we can get people to explain some of their motives while they're doing it in character, it makes the intention seem a little less hostile. Because a lot of people take a lot of love to the characters that they create and the time that they build and whatnot they put into them. So if somebody's about to put somebody else's character in danger and possibly costing their lives, it's like, hey, look, be mindful that this character is attached to this person, like it's a reflection of them. So when you go out of your way and you're just trying to play your game and not being considerate of everybody else, it's not cool with the rest of the table. And so like I said, I just usually slow everything down, try to understand the reasoning behind some of the stuff that my players do, and if it seems just way too out of the box and it's just way too much, I'll stop it as a DM, because I don't want anybody at my table to have a bad experience, but I don't want to give any one player so much leeway that everybody else feels like they've been rejected as well.
Yeah, sure. Anybody else?
Sure, I'll jump in again. So sure, you can do contested dice rolls or hidden these difficulty classes in D&D, but I spend 99% of my gaming life in the Dungeons and Dragons world, but there are some other systems out there that do handle social combat really well. Just for example, Savage Worlds has this wonderful social mechanic that you have these social contests. There's plenty of moves in PBTA games that are socially oriented. It is a kind of a challenge if you want to try and build an enchanter or some sort of D&D or a bard or a rogue who's socially focused. Do you just roll the die and then you're charming? It's kind of odd because we'll often ask the player to act that out.
Yeah.
But we won't ask the player to act out shooting a bow, right? So that's just an interesting conflict there.
And I brought that up earlier as well, because people assume that doing those social interactions is easier, but there are some people who just don't understand how to do that. Some people don't like to talk. Some people are more introverted. Having those actual mechanics in place for some more social moments would be interesting. And you said you started to bring up other TTRPGs. I'm curious to know what other TTRPGs have you played that have combat, and how do they differ from D&D as a whole? And what have you preferred against the main game that we all love?
I was harping on it this morning, the Masks TTRPG, where it's very much you're playing teen superheroes. It's much more, the combat is, there's no initiative, right? And there's no damage. Like there's no HP, there's no, damage modifier, nothing. It's just your rolls and telling the scene. So it's very much more cinematic in that sense. And the combats last maybe 10 minutes, maybe. Because it's more like the heroes all trying to work together to take down this villain, or they get knocked out, and it's just much more about the players describing what their powers look like and what cool moves they do and stuff. And so it adds a much more like cinematic and kind of moving element that keeps everybody focused. And that's why I really like that type of game and that type of combat.
I'll also chime in on that one too, because in Vampire the Masquerade, they do have a dice system where they allow you to apply a discipline. And the discipline is based on how much your particular character is invested to it. So if you haven't invested into something that would be socially, aggressive, your character wouldn't be able to express that because they haven't delved into it. And so when it comes to stuff like that, like I said, it's literally like, okay, you roll, and it will tell you, based on your results, how far, aggressive into this particular conversation you can be with this person, or how intimidated this other person can be based on what you've done here and the type of dialogue that you've already had in the current conversation. And so I also kind of like that a little bit better, because it relies a little bit more on, hey, how have you treated this person? How have you treated this NPC? How have you interacted in this environment? Are you known for X, Y, and Z? Are you an unknown? Do you have that kind of a face where people are a little bit more open to come and speak to you, or do you look a little bit more guarded off? And so it's one of the aspects in Vampire Masquerade where it makes social interactions between characters and NPCs a little bit easier, because you have to think about each and every approach. You can't just run in there and just start stabbing people, or run into town and just start blaming people that you're bad, and then you think you're combat, you know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things I do like about Vampire Masquerade, is like their discipline system and their skill system kind of alleviates aggressive social interactions, unless you're specifically trying to do that with your character who's built that way.
Yeah, so in Essence 20, which is the system that we have in-house, that is used for My Little Pony, Power Rangers, etc., we have a very low health system, so like a super great fighty character might have 5 hit points, and it makes you think a lot more about how you're going to do a fight, and about when is it worth it, and how can you work together as a team against a problem.
Avatar also works very similarly with Mask, because they both use the PBTA system, but the thing that I like the most about it in the combat is that you also don't have HP, but you do have what's called conditions. So you will get hit, maybe you decide to be scared or angry at the attack that happened to you, and now all of a sudden your roleplay also has to shift, because your character is literally angry, and there are certain conditions that have to be met in order for you to remove that inflicted status. And in order to do that, you have to do something bad in the game, which me as the GM loves that, because that gives me more obstacles to put in your way. You chose to do that. I love that. It literally adds in you have to be socially interactive in order to heal and or play the game properly.
Nice. Thank you. Now, we've kind of talked about our feelings on combat as a whole, and just how we try to navigate it. Then we can start giving some actionable items for those. So, like, we all know that combat tends to drag, or it becomes very stagnant, or it becomes I roll a die, hit next. How do you, as a player or as a DM, help that process run a little smoother or quicker? Or what is just some best practices at your table that you try to do?
I swear. This is such a tick for me. If you have played the game with me for a year, and you still have no idea what your character is going to do on your turn. You can be a new person, you can be a new player, that's fine. But, okay, so just to actually answer the question.
Wow.
It became a meme for a while in one of my games where I was like, 15 minutes, guy. 15 minutes this guy's taking on his turns on average. Know what your character's going to do by giving yourself 3 options. Give yourself the heaviest attack option, a support option, and a secondary attack option. Every single time, before your turn starts, pay attention to the game. Whether you're in a stream game or you're just playing with your friends and drinking, it doesn't matter. Pay attention to what's happening on the board. And a lot of my games are without the actual map anymore. We're all theater of the mind, which is actually difficult for me because I have aphantasia. So I literally can't put images in my head. So every once in a while there is like, I will get stuck and be like, all right, I think I forgot, maybe there was a thing next to me, I don't remember. But that doesn't matter because I've already planned out in the event that I had to ask that question, what I'm going to do in that instance once the answer comes to me. So do that. All of you, please do that. That is my suggestion. 3 options. Give yourself 3 options before your turn starts. That's the only reason why I came to this panel, to say that. Do that.
Something that I like to tell my players, and something that I've learned to tell my players as a DM, is if you know you got 5 or 6 players sitting at your table and you have the lowest initiative, by the time it gets around to your turn, you should already have your turn mapped out. Because you've seen what everybody else has done, you kind of got an idea what's going on in combat, you know how many bad guys there are on the field, you've had a chance to look 3 or 4 good times, and it's just like, hey, just as you see the turns progress, if you were going to do something 2 turns, behind somebody else, okay, well, you've got another turn or so to change your mind and say, okay, well, I seen him go kill that bad guy, I was about to go kill him, well, now I need to go redirect, look at my next attack or see who might be my next closest target. Or as long as you kind of give yourself a little bit of focus in the game, you'll learn to pace yourself as you go through as a new player, and even as an experienced player, that'll go even faster. The more that you understand the type of characters you're building will also help you out in combat because you know what types of attacks you'll use, you know what type of tactics you'll use in a fight. You'll know how you might want to party up with somebody after a couple of fights. If you know your party's got a fighter that's always going to run in and bash the first bad guy, okay, well, you don't have to be the first person that runs in and bash the bad guy because your party member's going to do it. Another thing that I've learned to do as far as people who take exceptionally long turns is like, hey, look, guys, I'm going to put him on the clock and he's got X amount of minutes, but while that's happening, go ahead and prep your turn. And I also let everybody know, hey, you're on deck.
That part.
So so that way when I say you're on deck, it means you need to start planning out your turn or know what you're gonna do, or at least have an idea. So even if you aren't quite sure whether or not you can do it, you already know, okay, look, when it comes to my turn and it's on me, if I have a question, the DM's already focused on me. He's waiting to see what I'm gonna do. He or she's gonna see what I'm gonna do. And then, you can kind of progress the turns that way. So that's usually something I like to do. And as a player, I like to try and also help out my fellow players at the table who may be newer, who aren't quite as familiar with combat. So that way, as they get into a combat or 2, and they start to get a little bit more familiar with how turns work in whatever RPG we're playing, they're a little bit more comfortable playing through a turn than trying to scramble through the player's guide or through their sheets trying to figure out what's on what page or what their modifiers may be or bonuses and stuff like that. And so as a veteran, that's what I like to do as a player, is I like to try and help out all my other players at the table. It's like, okay, you've seen what we can do. Let's look at your character sheet where you got a couple of turns. We know we got a group of bad guys in between us because we always don't roll high. You got to be extra special if you're rolling up there. But when you do roll low, don't take it as a bad sign. It just means that you have a little bit more time to prep your turns.
What I'll say is, might be a bit controversial, but this is for DMs, get rid of initiative. What I mean by that is, because when you have that long, it's a big combat, there's 6 other enemies on the table, you have a 6-member party, then there's 12 now members of this initiative. What I've done is I've broken it down to where the enemies move either together or at once in some way, shape, or form, and then I basically call on whoever's ready. And if somebody's ready to go, or people want to work together and do things and work in tandem, I kind of go round robin that way. And so everybody knows we're going to click through the turns as we go. We're not going to sit there and be like, okay, now you go, okay, now you go, it could be, all right, the two of you are standing next to each other, what would you like to do? It kind of removes that combat, that mechanic from the game, and it's not so much D&D combat sometimes at that point, but that's something I learned that worked really well, that kept everyone basically like focused from playing masks. Is that when you could go at any time, everybody's kind of together watching what's going on, opposed to, okay, I'm sixth in the order, so I'm gonna play Minecraft for a little bit. You know what I mean? It keeps everybody kind of engaged when I can just be like, okay, now the bad guy's looking at you, what do you want to do? You know what I mean? And then you tell me what to do. Yeah, it's your turn. Yeah, that's me.
Just one little tip, if you're running a game, you don't actually have to get through every single hit point and the bad guys. So good combat is all about pacing. That first round's almost always going to be the most exciting run. The second round, you start to see the way the combat's going to go. By round 3, it's time to start wrapping up the combat. And if you're building combats that take 20 rounds, and we're not talking about the culmination of a big campaign or something, you might want to rethink that a little bit. More quick combats is always more narratively interesting, because what gets boring is just slogging through hit points, right? And so what I'll do is once it's become clear that a combat's dragging, I'll just drop mechanics entirely and go like, okay, well, how do you land the finishing blow on this orc or whatever, and how do you land the finishing blow on the wizard or whatever? And I just ask people to do a little narrative description, just to get them engaged and moving it along.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but it's too. It's just like, don't be afraid to chump, a couple of HPs off those bad guys. If you see that your table, your party's table, is just running through guys, and you got maybe 2 guys left, and it's like maybe the 3rd turn of everybody going around the table, feel free to knock that last bad guy or 2 down a peg in it, or maybe somebody's attack is just enough to kill off those last 2 bad guys, so that way you don't have to wait another 4 people's turns to get to that initiative. So don't feel bad about doing it. Like I said, if you see it starting to slug down, or if it's just a couple of guys left and you want to try and keep your pace, or if you're like on a timeline or anything like that, it's okay to do that.
I got to share a little secret that I've never told anybody. That exciting combat I mentioned with the 99 hit points, I'm not lying, the bad guy actually had 101. And I was just like, oh, it really would suck to be like this big culminating, and he did this big dramatic thing, and it was 1 hit point too many. How dumb. It's 99.
So my advice is for GMs, get your players to do the work. Everybody here is here to have this event, to play together. Have somebody do your initiative. Have somebody track conditions. Get the person who is your rules lawyer, and get them to be the rules advocate and help other people play their characters, and make sure that they are aware that when they offer these things, it is as advice and not something that they put into a way of like, well, the best thing for you to do is this. And so that's what I would suggest. Trusting each other to play a story together, trust each other to share the brain space.
And I got one other little tip for DMs is for like when it comes to HP, I don't really have HP, and usually what I do is the enemy will deal X damage before it's time to go. So like I'll have this one bad guy over here, he's gonna do 10 damage, and then the next time he gets hit, he's knocked out. Again, it keeps things a little bit more moving and narratively interesting. Again, not slogging through hit points. It's like, he can drop these big hits, but he's been taking hits for 4 rounds, and then after he does that final blow, he's knocked out.
Yeah. Can I have one more thing?
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, don't have fights where the only objective is to kill the other people. Have there be something going on that they're competing over, and that way it's not a matter of, oh, can we reduce them to 0 hit points? It's, can we do whatever is being involved in the scene better than they can or before they can?
I typically, as a moderator, you really shouldn't. As a moderator, it's all about the panelists. I got a lot to add to this one. Sorry, not sorry. But just really quickly piggyback off that, and it kind of goes into something I have as well. Why are they fighting? Most of the time they're fighting because of a miscommunication.
Yep.
Figure out what that is. What's the plot behind the fight? At the end of the day, this is a tabletop role-playing game. This is not, Mortal Kombat. The purpose isn't to fight. The purpose is to tell a story. So figure out the story behind the combat. You don't always have to have combat every session. And if you have that combat, it doesn't have to always be meaningful, but find a meaning and find a reason, and then help your players find that reason. 9 times out of 10, the fight doesn't have to last long because they realize the fight is irrelevant. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. Couple of things though. For players, yeah, know your character sheets. Doing the work is also understanding that the DM does not have everything for you all the time. They are running this game, they are running the sound, if they're adding ambiance to the game, they are running 6 people, or 5, however many things, they're running all the players they have to play as NPCs against you. You can do the bare minimum and know your character sheet, or at least have a way to reference something so you understand your character sheet better. And if you've been playing the character for a while, as George said, then it's kind of like no excuse at that point. But we're all human, and no one's in trouble. But just do that extra part and know your character sheet as much as possible so that process can remain being smooth. DMs, in that same brain though, sometimes players just don't always get it, especially if they're new or they're playing something they haven't played before. Wizards was the last class I played in D&D, because I did not understand their book. I understand now, but I was like, what? So I can have this many spells, but not really. They're prepared, but not really. They're in this, So be gracious and understanding that sometimes it's hard. So just have references next to you, or make a decision. It's not your game, but it's your game that you're leading. Sometimes make a choice. Homebrew something. Oh, it's fine. You can do that. You can punish them for it later if you want to. But don't be so caught up in the rules that they are. It's combat. It's fun. Have fun. Another thing for DMs, if you forget, especially in D&D, guess how long one round is? 6 seconds. I know it takes longer in life, but think about that story. What's happening in 6 seconds? Why is all this happening in 6 seconds? Which means the combat as a whole is only going to take maybe 30 seconds. Think about the story behind it. And lastly, just be engaged. This is not a game where it's about you, period. You are serving the story. I like to tell my players, guess what? You might be the heroes in this game, but you're not the heroes of the world, unless you become the heroes of the world. 9 times out of 10, the people around the corner don't know you. Don't give yourself that much pride, you're not that special. But with that being said, be engaged with your fellow player at that table, especially during combat. Once your turn is over, that's not time for you to start checking your phone and checking out and calling people and doing your DoorDash, unless you need to because you're hungry. But be engaged. That also helps the combat flow smoothly because you know what's happening. You see the process. You know what to do. Oh, my cleric just used turn undead. Okay, I'm not going to fight that skeleton because that would be ridiculous, and your cleric would be mad at you. So just keep all those things in mind. I think it's super important. And then,
I'm just gonna add one thing to that. With mobs and familiars and like skeleton mobs for necromancers and stuff like that, group all of them at one time like you would in bad guys, because that is exhausting to try and give each of those things a single turn and try and remember that they're in the turn order. Just if you've got a familiar who fights with you in combat, they go on your turn. If you've got a mob of zombies, you treat them like a mob of gnolls going in the pack. They all attack on the same turn. You give them one group attack and let it go. Because if you try and swing for every sword or axe or shoot every bow that every one of those guys have, you will extend the combat beyond measure, and it will drain everybody at the table way before you get to that one turn. And especially if it's just your mobs of guys doing what they're doing, or your packs of wolves doing what they're doing. Like, group them all together, make it one part, keep pushing.
And lastly, on that specific subject, and I kind of said it, but I just want to reiterate it again. It really is about the story. If you know that you have a certain arc and your fighter needs this moment, let them have that moment. It doesn't matter how long it goes, no matter how short it goes. If you see that they're next and they get done something that you know is just so impactful for them, combat's done. Don't be afraid to stop combat. For any reason, honestly. Have fun. This game is about having fun with each other. Before we get into Q&A, there's another very specific topic about combat that people don't talk about a lot, and I think we should. You have made a character in this game. It is you. At the end of the day, you're making the decisions, the thought process, it is you. And you get into a combat, you're fighting, you're getting into it, and now that's starting to affect you in reality. We call that character bleed. when fantasy blends into reality. And sometimes people don't realize that you are getting so pumped and hyped because you just killed this thing and now it's starting to affect you, or your character just died and now it's really affected you. How have you all handled that? And what are some best practices to try to not necessarily prevent character bleed, because sometimes it's just going to happen, but how do you alleviate it and help people through it?
So the biggest step I have is something I learned from, like, I'm going to reference this again from being in acting school, is like to prevent character bleed. You have a song for your character, and then you have a song for yourself. You know what I mean? So that it's like, while I'm playing my character, I have a playlist, I have a thing, but then when it's time for me to step away, especially during a dramatic moment, a really intense scene, a fight, what have you, it's where you need to calm down. It's like, I have a playlist just for me, just for myself, that is music that I like, that is not related to Gilgamesh von March III. You know what I mean? Or something like that. So having something like auditory helps me personally a lot to step away and out of the story.
Something that I've tried and done a couple times too is if I have somebody's character die inside of my game, I give them that option of, hey, I can give your party a mission to try and revive your character, or you can have like your character have a family member who comes and searches your old character to find out what happened. Give that character's life a story to someone else. You know, give them a chance to let that life spread on to someone else so that character doesn't continue to cling to you. The other thing too is it's like, look, just hold a vigil for that character. Like, let your party actually hold a vigil and honor that character, you know, and make a whole scene out of this. Like, they're a paladin and they serve a certain god, okay? Take their equipment to that temple. Give them honor of that character, because then your party shows that character the same amount of respect that you feel for that character. And so that should allow that person to kind of be like, okay, look, my character's died. But they're being honored by my party. My party will remember they can spread that name as they continue their venture, and I can bring a new life into it. And that's something I've done. It's worked a few times. So, yeah, we're good.
I think character bleed doesn't happen very often for me, but I know that when it does, it's because I don't trust the players or DM as much as I probably should. It's if there's like party conflict of any kind, or if I feel like the DM is picking on me or someone else or whatever, then that's when the feelings start to dive in. So it again doesn't happen very often, but like really be honest with yourself if you do start to get character bleed. What is causing this? Is it a personal interaction you had with the player outside of the game? And maybe talk to them about it. It really all falls down to trust and communication at that point.
I was going to say, embrace your safety tools, even if it's people that you played with for a decade. Make sure that everybody knows that they can put a stop into the situation if they're having bleed, or if there's a miscommunication and there's a problem, that we can work these things out cooperatively, because we're all here to play a game, and we're all here to have fun. And sometimes emotions get high, and putting that break and talking it through, or talking it through afterward. Aftercare is very important for things like this. Yeah, that's what I would say.
But I add one thing too. If you have a particular type of character bleed where you and maybe somebody else in your party, their characters are married or in a relationship or romantic, and that starts to bleed over, please don't act on that. And if you do, or if somebody else at your table knows that, please say something to the DM. Because just because that's something that your characters have doesn't mean it's something you get to have in actual life. Like you never really know what kind of problems that can cause. So if you start to notice that, or you feel like, hey, this might be a thing, please say something to your DM, please say something to your party, or make it known, hey, look, this is just something that my character is doing. Don't make it seem like it's personal or anything like that, because a lot of people will take it personal, especially like say if you have any type of character bleed over. It's like, oh, I romantically fell for this person, and you try to impress that on the person whose character that is. And you want to try and avoid that as best as possible. Like if you feel like that's a thing, please say something.
For sure. Anyone? That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I once quit a game of Stars Without Number, actually, because of something the Space Racer, it's called in that game, did in the game. And, I think it's a fine line between character bleed and when somebody does something that's unsafe in a game, right? And so this was a case where something happened to our characters, and my character was incredibly upset about it, but so was I, because it crossed a line. So, though sometimes we might want to guard against character bleed, I think it's important to be sensitive to your own responses to what happens in a game, because there can be things that happen at a table that are not okay for the players, and that needs to be discussed, preferably in advance, but just to be aware of that.
Yeah. And I just want to bring it up really quickly. I should give more weight to it, but we got the time. I want to make sure we have Q&A. Combat also means PvP. PvP potential situations, and that really requires communication and understanding. So don't be afraid as a DM to facilitate those conversations. And as a player, don't be afraid to go to another player and say, hey, my character's feeling like this. It could come to blows. How do you feel about that? Have that honest conversation. The answer could be, I don't think I'm cool with that, and then you just have to figure out how you're going to navigate that, because that's safety. It doesn't matter how you feel at that moment, the other person doesn't feel safe in that situation. But if they do feel safe and you all come to a consensual agreement, then knock if you buck, do what you gotta do. But still have that conversation. I mean, because PvP can be very powerful in a game, but it also can easily trigger bleed, because now I feel like you're fighting me. And you don't want to do that. I'm 6'4", let's go. But yeah, and I had an actual thing, but I forgot what it was, and that's totally fine. I was gonna say, for me, especially to try to counteract bleed specifically when it comes to combat, if it makes sense and I can do it, I automatically break after combat. Let people come out of that moment, get something to drink, bio, do the things that make you human, and if you're not human, pretend to be for the next 5 or 10 minutes, right? Step out of the game for just a second, just to make sure everybody's resetting, restarting. Sometimes it's, again, if it's a poignant moment and like the paladin needs this after this fight, we can take another 5 minutes in that scene to let it kind of marinate and sit, and then we'll break. But I try to always put a hard break after a combat, just to make sure everybody feels good, feels safe, we're good, you're great, you did that to that goblin, his mom's gonna remember that. You know, like stuff of that nature, just kind of bringing back the joy, then we can keep going. With that being said, we're gonna get into some Q&A. Go ahead and put your hands up when you're ready. Please ask a question, do not give me an essay or a dissertation. I will cut you off respectfully. Because we have 17 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get as enough questions as possible. Panelists, don't give essays as well. Just answer if you want to. Only be like 2 or 3 of us. We're going to start over here, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll get more people. I promise.
What do y'all feel is more important? Maybe literature support.
Ooh, that's gonna be Jets versus Sharks. Support helps regardless. That's how I feel. Like, yeah, I can hit you hard, or I can hold you and dominate you, or just send you to the shadow realm. Like, that's how I feel. But, you know, people might feel differently.
I'm more along the lines that I prefer party balance. I believe you should have both, because if you have a party full of heavy hitters who are mentally weak, you might as well just not go against anybody with telepathic powers, because all of y'all getting kidnapped right there and then. Your party's over. Y'all instantly became NPCs for me at that point. And then don't be a group of supporters and then have no power, because you're going to be throwing rocks at the trolls and they're going to be looking at you like, what are we doing? So.
And I'm going to say neither. Controllers all day.
Hey. Nice. Putty?
Yeah, any recommendations for a new GM leading new players in combat?
New GMs leading new players in combat. Any recommendations?
Take your time going through combat, because if you mess up, everybody else will too. And then that'll start to mumble everything, because everybody's going to be trying to figure out what's going on and why this works and why that doesn't work. So take your time through those first few combats, especially if it's a brand new group and you're a brand new GM. Just get used to some of the basics, make the combat small, so you can do a bunch of combats in a row, but they're all fairly small, so it's like a couple turns here and there for everybody to get used to the mechanics, including yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, if you're a new GM, write down what exactly each monster is going to do each turn. You know what I mean? Just like your players should know what they're going to do on their turns, the monsters should know what they're going to do on their turns, you know? And so that can help kind of guide you through the combat. Is just kind of doing that little work ahead of time, which it may change, but.
And especially with new players, validate the fact that they don't know what they're doing. Be like, it's okay that I've had to explain this whole 3 times. You know, like just, yeah, I can explain that to you again. Like, to keep that up. That's important.
I would say focus on rewarding their creativity rather than sticking too straight to the rules. Because if they feel like the rules are confining them rather than allowing them as a framework to do the cool stuff that is in their brains, they're not going to have fun in the game. So encourage them to come up with cool ideas and find ways for the rules to support them. And maybe don't roll. You know, maybe they want to do a cool thing and just let the thing happen.
And just to piggyback off of that, the cool thing, as they do that, they're going to learn the game. And then they'll know what works.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, again, don't stifle the creativity because that's how you get them to never play again. Let them feel it and then go, oh, I actually really can't do that. Let me do it this way. Now they're learning the game and now you're all on the same page. Good question. Taupe? Sure, yeah. I think that's taupe. Yeah. It's giving taupe.
So there was a suggestion earlier to remove initiative entirely, and I think that's really cool. My primary game is 5e, and I've read the DMG and all the different rule variants in the back, and one of them is basically, just have side style combat, good guys, bad guys, that's it. But the issue that I run into with that is when you're trying to play off of the mechanic that is initiative. So particularly rogue, things like assassin, really like to mess with initiative, and initiative does things for them. What are suggestions that you have to address that, but still have that very free form, let's just take a turn when it's our turn?
I would definitely take that, because I also have that exact same thought. There's some things that very specifically affect how it's effective with initiative. So how do you handle that?
So when it comes to like the rogue, particularly like kind of dancing through initiative, it's understanding. It comes down for me personally is understanding my players and what their play style is. So if I know that they're gonna want to go first because they have this special thing that they want to do, I'm gonna provide them that opportunity while still kind of removing initiative, if that makes sense. Like I know my friend over here is gonna want to sneak first and is gonna want to stab first. Look at him. So I know that's going to happen. So that kind of comes down to like I'm aware of what my table is going to do anyways, even without initiative. So then kind of narrating the story that way so they can still get those moments in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. More hands. I'm sorry. There you go. Over here, and then the back, and then over here. So, right here.
Yeah, so actually, me and my friends, we're making a new TTRPG.
Oh, period.
Yeah, everything has been super helpful, but I wanted to ask, for building something from the ground up, is there anything extra you might want to, say you throw in, just to keep in mind also as we're moving further?
Oh, nice. Yeah. For newer TTRPGs, what would you throw in to like kind of facilitate that process a little better that probably isn't already in a TTRPG?
Also, it is predominantly sci-fi, just so you know.
Oh, even better. Pew pew.
Just one thing I'd suggest, and this is maybe not helpful, but read as many other games as you can. Because there is a ton of other ways of thinking, So that's a big first step.
I was gonna agree to that too. Like, look at the different systems and the way that they've adjusted how encounters work, penalties and causalities, because those will help you build your game out by using as comparisons. So I agree with you on that. Yeah.
There was something that was said earlier about give your players something else to do other than just reading on something. And I feel like in the sci-fi world, there's plenty of things you could do in combat that would open it up. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. All right. Thank you. I got a system, and then we got any much time left? Okay. Great. Good. We can go over here, and then we can go boo boo. Yeah.
You had mentioned PvP earlier. I would be really curious to hear you all expand on your experiences with PvP and any interesting takeaways you have from it.
LOL! Alec knows very well that PvP almost happened in our last session that we ran of Monster of the Week. Again, it comes down to character trust. Not character trust, it comes down to player trust. Understanding that this might come to a part where it's going to be rough. It's going to feel personal because it's no longer just the DM going against you. It's another player and their character. So really have those conversations. How far are you willing to go? How far is the player willing to accept? How far are you willing to go? Right? Have that communication always open. And during that scene, I'm always in communication, right? It's not that, oh, we already talked, we're gonna let this happen. If I feel like something might be off, I'm gonna go, hey, how's that? Are you good? You great? Great, amazing. Yeah, I have a character who, unfortunately, is very connected to like raw magic power, and he could do a lot if he really wanted to. And I was going to get someone who's very much divine in some way that I still don't know. And it's stressful, but like it could have went to, oh, it could have been bad. We could have destroyed that ship. But we were talking in the background of how the interactions happen, allowed us to kind of take that apart. And don't be afraid if PvP happens to be willing to stop it. So again, I think ultimately it comes to communication.
One thing I will add, because in my last actual D&D session, nice catch, I actually did get into it with a PvP, but prior to the PvP, I had messaged my DM and let him know, hey, this is what my character's doing. I need you to assist me in going into this. There's a plot going into this. And so my DM helped me role play that out so it didn't come off as, oh, I'm just trying to outright kill your guy, you know? No, I'm trying to do something specific here. My DM helped me tell that part of the story. And so that's one way you can also deal with PvP. It can be something that's dealt with through story, or like if you're in the bar, you got your characters that's drunk, okay, I let them have a fist fight. You're at a bar, you're drunk. You know, one hit point here, one hit point there, maybe a couple rounds ago, end of PvP. You know, it won't kill your party to have a bar fight and then wake up in the next morning like, yo, somebody hit me. Do you know anything about it? Nah, man. I mean, I literally had one of my characters get drunk in a bar and then his entire party painted him pink. He was an orc and made him, like I said, they painted him full on pink with magic and everything, and he woke up the next morning completely with no idea what happened to him, but he just all of a sudden became pink. And that was a thing then.
Yeah, you want to add something?
And definitely keep in mind, like, mistakes are going to be made, boundaries are going to be crossed, especially when people want to have that shock value. Don't be me. 2 years ago, I had a similar situation where we were in combat, and my character told the players, listen, we're going to fight these guys, but don't kill them. Just do the unconscious subdual damage, and then we'll talk to them afterwards. And one of the other players decided to kill one of the other characters. So my character entered rage mode and then dragged his like 2 HP butt over to the campfire and held him over and was like, you have to tell me why it is I shouldn't be killing you right now. Because I made it very clear you are not to kill anyone. I don't know who you are, and you just killed someone in front of me. And it was a very serious, heated moment. And at the end of, it was like right at the end of the stream, and we ended it, and I went over to this guy named Jake, and I was like, Jake, so we've talked twice. How'd you feel about that? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, listen, that was all, like, I'm totally fine with you as a player. And he's like, oh, thank God. No, I thought you were upset with me. And I'm like, no, really, like, we're okay. So, like, yes, communicate. Please communicate with your players. But you are going to make those mistakes sometimes. Sometimes you're going to feel a moment and you're going to do it, but please make sure to, like, really reach out to your people and get that validation.
All right, and first I got to stop real quick. Okay. Rapid fire, the last 3 questions. If you don't get to your question, we promise I'm going to stay after a little bit after. Unfortunately, I got one in the back, Jack Frost, green jacket. Gonna do 1, 2, 3.
Hi, I am mostly a wargaming player. So one of the things I found really interesting about like good wargame systems versus bad wargame systems is morale. And so in a RPG context, how do you do like, when do people start running away? How do you manage that? Because that's a great way to break off a fight when it starts getting boring. Yeah. But also specifically, how do you have the players run away? When should you make the players run away?
Yeah. One person answer this. How do you?
Can I shotgun that?
Sure.
Cool. Make the bad guys impose upon them that they cannot win. Like there are times, like you've seen in the movies, there are times where people just are facing something so insurmountable that they just, okay, look, no, we can't do this, guys. We're not prepared. This is not a go. You know, give them some kind of context where it's like, hey, look, you go in here, it's a wrap for you. Like this is not somewhere you're supposed to be. Like, yeah, like just like I said, that's the best way you can do is like just make it seem like there's a wall there and they're not going to be able to come. They're not ready, or give them that hint. Before they enter an area, it's like, look, bro, it's a bad idea. Like,
or maybe, like, say as a DM, like, dog, I'm going to kill you here.
Yeah.
If you don't.
I mean, sometimes if they don't get the hint, you may have to do that.
There's a bunch of ammo and health packs here.
Stress that consequences go right? That's how you get that. Jack Frost?
Do you guys have any advice for new GMs on picking challenge ratings or picking enemies that aren't too difficult or too easy, like enemies that won't get killed with a single punch or enemies that will accidentally TPK the party? Because I almost accidentally killed them.
Don't use banshees.
One person get this one.
No, I'm good
All right.
actually.
I mean, I can
I'm
do
bad
that.
at this.
So, short version, look at their the full range of the damage and their hit points and the full range of damage that your players can put out in one attack, and choose a monster that has more hit points than if they crit and roll max damage. And make sure that if the enemy does it, they won't one-shot one of your opponents. And don't forget that bad guys can take prisoners too. So if you TPK, they can just wake up in the prison.
And just really quickly, don't be afraid to fudge the dice. You're the DM. Let the story happen. If you know you're going to kill them, just don't. Oh my god, it's not you one! They chopped off their arm. You can do that. Great jacket.
Say, what do you guys think of the idea of implementing some sort of like combat fatigue system where like certain debuffs be given after like certain combat turn levels? Like for example, you were talking about how that you want to end combat quickly and all that, and I've always been a kind of rules have to facilitate the rules. But so, for example, after the third round, you get double damage, which encourages like big climactic like moments and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say check out the 13th page. It's got a escalation die, and every time, like after every round, your escalation die goes up, and that adds to everything that you do. And so it pushes, rather than giving a penalty, it pushes with additional bonuses to eat up that hit points or to get through that objective faster the longer it goes on.
Yeah, the Vampire Masquerade has a similar thing too, where when you start using more of your disciplines, the more you use it, the more chances that something goes bad. So that's another way you can do it too. It's just like implement a system where it's like, okay, the more you do something, the more something chaotic can happen.
And I would say, unless it is built into the system, creating things that will negatively impact the players isn't always great, because they are the heroes of the game. They are supposed to win or do cool things. And by creating your own negative system, it's going to, more often than not, will negatively impact the players.
Yeah. One last thing on that is if you do want one thing to like help you kind of negatively impact them but still positively, is something I do is if a player wants to do something and they're out of actions, they're out of movement, I will allow them to do it, but they'll take a level of exhaustion. Like if they want to expend a spell slot that they don't have, they'll take a level of exhaustion to do it because they're like, they're going further beyond, right? They're pushing their limits, they're pushing themselves, but there will be a negative consequence afterwards.
Very, very, very. Hey, blindside. I'm so sorry. You're going to be the last one, and then we have to be done.
Okay. I sometimes like to run encounters against like a volcano or 100-foot dragon, something enormous that you can't run as a creature. You basically have to run it as an environment. What tips would you have for like running an encounter against something that is an environment type scale?
I can say one thing is check out 2C Gaming's Titans series. They have a set of rules where it's kind of like in a JRPG where it's actually you fight parts of the environment or parts of the monster. So you fight the Titan's arm and the Titan's leg and all this sort of thing. And some of the Titans are in fact kind of like mountains or dungeons or that sort of thing too.
Would you say publishes that?
2C Gaming.
2C Gaming. And someone said it, but I agree. Timers, stress them out. You're going against a literal apocalyptic entity that you can't actually fight. How do they handle that? What do they do with their skills to beat that moment? Because it's not always fist fighting. Sometimes it's how well you know the area around you, but also use time against them. You won't win if you take too long. This is the volcano. You will die. With that being said, let's very quickly say who we are and where we can find you. Sorry, starting over here.
That's fine. Good Grief George. You can find me basically everywhere as Good Grief George. I do mostly GM Avatar Legends. If you guys want to play Avatar, because you all love Atla, I know you do. Tomorrow, Saturday from 10 to 2, there's a game going on, and I'll probably run a second one if there's enough interest.
Nice.
I'm Alec the Bard. You can find me everywhere as Alec the Bard. I'm a TTRPG content creator and professional ballroom dancer.
Tay Mathis, most social media you can find me in Tay Mathis. Occasionally you'll find me if there's somebody else's stream somewhere or at a convention center supporting somebody's charity. That's where you find me.
Ben Heisler, Renegade Game Studios. The best way to find me is on Twitter, which I'm trying to be more active on, and there I'm at ZentarmPR.
Gwendolyn Marshall, Gwen_H_Marshall on Twitter and elsewhere.
And I'm Omega Jones, also known as Critical Bard. I end everything with the simple saying, as I am the monarch of the kingdom of treble. Keep making treble wherever you go, because it's up to us to shake up the system, one troublemaker at a time. This has been Art of Combat. Thank you all so much. Enjoy it.